This is DRF Race of the Day. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman and Mike Beer, the DRF Race of the Day for Wednesday, February the 3rd, race number 9 at Gulfstream Park. Let's throw up the field for a nice optional claimer going 7/8 of a mile for fillies and mares. You can download free Formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. Access them, handicap along with us. We've got some accomplished names in this race, Mike. The 4 Hopeful Growth is a graded stakes winner that just ran 3rd in the Black Eyed Susan in October. Lake Avenue was a graded stakes winner at 2 that didn't really pan out at 3. And we have a couple of other promising up-and-comers in this group.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty interesting race because the 4 favorites on the morning line, the 4 shortest prices, they all it feels like there's a clear dividing line between those 4 horses and then the other 4 in this field. So we'll see how it all plays out. It's not like those horses don't all have something to prove still, Dan, but it does feel like any one of them could turn out to still be pretty good.
Let's throw up the Timeform U.S. pace projector for our race of the day. The 6, Lake Avenue, expected to make the early lead, and it would be nice if Lake Avenue could find that early speed that propelled her to a big maiden win, followed by a gate-to-wire score in the Demoiselle at 2. After setting the pace in her first start at 3 and disappointing at a short price, she hasn't been as close to the pace as perhaps she could have been. I wonder if Dance Dioro takes the race from her, though, from the inside.
I think in a lot of ways that the pace projector could be the key to this race, Dan, because I think what they do with Lake Avenue could have a big say in the outcome. As you mentioned, as a 2-year-old, she was pretty fast and they used her speed effectively. As a 3-year-old, they really didn't use her speed all the time. And she just wasn't nearly as good and didn't improve really at all from 2 to 3. She's never been a good gate horse. It's not like she breaks like a rocket every time they run her, but I do feel like maybe it's time for them to try to go back to using her speed here.
I think there are 2 ways to look at the number 1, Crumbum, who we see sort of in mid-pack or near the back of the pack on the Timeform U.S. pace projector. One way is to say, well, she's a little bit class compromised. She got good during the summer meet at Gulfstream, which is not as challenging as the current winter championship meeting. I think there's another way to look at Crumbum, though. She ran a couple of good figures during that summer meet, and then she went to the sidelines. And ever since she's come back, she's been way overmatched.
Yeah, I feel like that is probably the proper way to look at her, especially when you start, looking at the morning line. And it feels like she has to be a pretty good price in this race. So I feel like at anything over 10 to 1, you're supposed to take a positive view on her. She did get good over the summer. She ran some really nice races, and I feel like this is a good distance for her as well.
And she was 12 to 1 on the morning line. Off the layoff, she caught This Is My Time, who came back to win with a big speed figure and then earned a stakes placing. And then last time out, no match against Latruska, who just came back and wired him again in the Houston Ladies Classic with a 98 buyer, held up behind a slow pace set by Latruska. She's probably not beating Latruska anyway, but not with that trip as well. The 2 is Velvet Crush. Interesting that Chad Brown gets his hands on Velvet Crush. This is an older filly that was with Rudy Brissett last year. Velvet Crush looked like she was slowly getting good, and then she got thrown to the wolves in the Coaching Club American Oaks, just a race where she didn't break, and against those kind of horses, she can't afford that sort of start. Antoinette came back to win the Saratoga Oaks on turf, second in the Grade 1 Belmont Oaks, and then she just didn't fire in the Lake George, which isn't really her best surface, so she has excuses for her last 2 races. Interesting to see her come back sprinting. I actually like her at this distance.
Yeah, I don't mind the shorter distance for her either. It is a layoff, though. A trainer change to Chad Brown, showing graded stakes lines. She feels to me like a kind of horse who could take money in here. And, personally speaking, Dan, I just wouldn't want any kind of a short price on her. Her races are fine, but they don't really do a lot for me. I realize that, the Coaching Club American Oaks, she dwelt at the start. You probably want to give her a pass for that one. But that was also a very weak one running to that race.
No Mazar was claimed for $50,000 2 starts back. And in her first start, they stretched her all the way out to 1 mile and a 16th. And she kind of chased a quick pace up front before tiring. I just didn't think much of that field, however. And I know it was a solid non-winners of 3 other than optional claimer at Churchill. I like her turning back here. I just didn't think that was a very strong race. And this might actually be a little tougher spot.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too. Again, she's another big price in this race, and if you like her, you're probably supposed to take a little bit of a shot here. But I felt like she was the one out of all these horses who might be most class compromised.
Hopeful Growth makes her first start against older horses after a very good campaign at 3. She won the Monmouth Oaks. She was overmatched in the Kentucky Oaks. Don't hold that race against her. And then she ran okay last time out in the Black Eyed Susan. Let's watch that race. There was a big pace on in here. Miss Marissa went gate to wire in a very game effort. Hopeful Growth you're going to see chasing in third throughout, kind of one paced all the way around. They're going 1 1/8. Bonnie South, the big favorite's going to come with a big run to finish second. Hopeful Growth tried hard in here at a distance that might be a little far for her, and she has done well at 7 in the past. She's bullet workout for this race. Maybe she's not completely cranked up, but I would expect her to run well. She's got some nice figures.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, she's the horse to beat in here. Even when you sort of take her from apart and realize that she kind of came out of nowhere to become a Grade 3 winner, and a Grade 3 winner after a perfect trip in that race at Monmouth. But she ran well in the Black Eyed Susan last time. I thought she was trying real hard in there, just couldn't get herself involved late. And I don't mind them cutting her back either, Dan. She won that 7-furlong race at Tampa last May very easily.
Dance Dioro beat a useful filly 2 starts back over a sloppy track when they used her speed to get to the front. She then went off a little bit of a layoff. They caught her at Gulfstream West last time out, and the horse that beat her is a decent horse. Gibberish came back to win a little stakes race. I believe that's 3 in a row for her. She's now won 4 of her last 5. Here's a formulator fact for Dance Dioro, who's returning off an October layoff. Ralph Nix does good work with horses off 2 to 4 month layoffs, 31%, $5.73 ROI on dirt over the past couple of years with older horses. I think Jaramillo is going to be aggressive, a la 2 starts back, and get this horse on the front. She still has a lot of upside.
Yeah, she does. She has a lot of upside. The last race might be a little bit difficult to get past. Gibberish is a nice filly. Dance Dioro tried to race that horse early, dueled her up the backstretch, and was just no match for her. She was basically eased in that race, though. It sort of exaggerates the margin of defeat. I thought she was headed the right way before that, Dan. I think they will use her speed in this race. She has a really big pedigree, so it would be no surprise to me if she took a step forward in here.
This is a very important race for Lake Avenue, and you can argue that 5 to 1 on the morning line is more than square considering her credentials. When she won the Demoiselle as a 2-year-old, there were a lot of hopes for her last year at 3 as it pertained to the Kentucky Oaks. Maybe the Demoiselle's a little bit dressed up because you wanted to be on the rail that day and on the lead, and she had both of those things in her favor. I think you could look at her campaign at 3 as just several things conspired against her. Maybe the Busher off the layoff wasn't a great race. Maybe going a 1-turn mile is a little short for her. The Gulfstream Oaks, though, Mike, that was a race where they probably could have used her speed and they didn't. And I know she was in against Swiss Skydiver, but rating her in that race didn't work out. And then when Swiss Skydiver got good, Lake Avenue was in trouble, as we saw in the fantasy.
Yeah, as it turns out, it probably didn't matter what they did in the Gulfstream Park Oaks against Swiss Skydiver, but she clearly got the wrong ride there. I mean, they walked on the lead, and for whatever reason, they decided to rate this horse, and it kind of blew up in her face. After that, listen, her fantasy wasn't any good, and then she had a layoff after that, and she came back sprinting and didn't break that great at Churchill Downs, and was basically 4 wide around the track. So maybe you want to give her some excuses, Dan. Personally, I don't want to give her excuses. I kind of want to make her prove it to me as she comes back off of a short break here, but I'm not going to be surprised if she runs well.
The horse that beat her last time out's useful. She came back to win a little stakes race at Remington Park with an 87 buyer. And again, that race was off the long layoff, and she is working quickly over the deep and tiring surface at pace. And so I agree. I think that she should run a little bit better this time around. I'm not sure how short a price I would take, and I think Junior Alvarado should get aggressive. The 7 is Sonar, who got aggressive last time out over a track that might have played to her strengths. I thought the main track at Gulfstream in this race, December 19th, I thought it just played to horses that were on the lead and were down on the rail. And Sonar just got the right ride from Arad Ortiz. It helped that the pace wasn't fast, and she sprinted on home.
Yeah, you can see how strongly she's finishing here, really giving the closers no chance. She had all the best of it here. She's a horse who, in addition to this race, the only other 2 times she won, Dan, both races where she was able to be right up there, on or near the lead. That's probably where she wants to be. It feels like things could get competitive up there this time, and she's going to have to get 7.
Another horse working quickly at Payson off a layoff is Finding Fame. Finding Fame for Shug McGahee, Lake Avenue at Payson for Bill Mott. Let's watch Finding Fame's last race. You got to go all the way back to June. And I thought this was a useful performance. She's beaten as the favorite, but she's taken on some solid older horses on her way at a really good year last year. And you see Finding Fame, she's kind of in between horses. She kind of got impeded onto her left lead, but she finishes with interest when she sees this seam in between. The layoffs are worrisome, but she did a lot of good work at Gulfstream last year.
She did. I mean, I don't really have anything bad to say about this horse. And it also feels like she could fit the flow of this race pretty well. I mean, if this pace gets competitive, it's not going to help anybody more than it helps her. I think she has to improve again to beat this field. I don't see why she can't do it.
Let's take a look at our top picks for our Wednesday DRF race of the day. Both looking for a little bit of a price. Both have 12-1 shots on the morning line. Dance Dioro, gate to wire winner, 2 starts back. Should be a forward factor.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it. I'm hoping they use her speed in here and maybe she can take, one more step forward in this race. I feel like perhaps you and I looked at it kind of the same way, Dan. The 4 favorites, the 4 shorter prices on the morning line, the well-connected fillies. I just didn't really want a short price on any of them. I wanted somebody else.
This is a good field, but there are no This My Times in here. There are no Latruskas in here, to be sure. Crumbum gets some class relief, and third off the layoff. I think she can sit a decent enough trip behind the pace. We'll find out if she's this good at a price. 1,487 for me, 5,841 for Mike. It's your Wednesday DRF race of the day, the 9th at Gulfstream Park.